It was late 2011 in the city of Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. Local police received a missing girl report. But this wasn't a normal case. Police didn't start the search from her home, not from her school. They went straight to her grave. Yes, the child in question had died months ago and had been properly buried in a cemetery. Her family had grieved. They had moved on. But on what would have been her 10th birthday, her parents returned to lay flowers, only to find her grave violated. The coffin empty, and she was gone. So how could she now be missing? Before we show you how this nightmare unfolded, take a moment to hit subscribe, because the stories we tell here aren't just dark, they're true. Police didn't know what to expect, but what they found was worse than anything they imagined. The earth was freshly disturbed, the coffin had been cracked open, and the child's body was gone. At first, they thought it was a sick prank, a one-time desecration. But that one missing girl was only the beginning. When police expanded the investigation, they were horrified to discover something far worse. More families came forward. More graves were found dug up. More bodies missing. Some thought it was cult activity. Others feared organ trafficking. Investigators didn't know who was behind it, only that someone was targeting the graves of young girls. This had been happening for years, quietly, methodically. Some of the graves had been desecrated, dated all the way back to 2003. Many families had moved away or rarely returned to the cemeteries, so the crimes went unnoticed for years. No cameras, no guards. Most families never visited after the funeral, so no one realized the children were missing. Until now. This wasn't random. It was ritualistic, methodical. Police launched a covert operation. Surveillance cameras, undercover officers, silent stakeouts across multiple cemeteries. On the night of October 26, 2011, at 2 a.m., hidden cameras finally captured the intruder in action. It was freezing cold. The graveyard was empty, except for one man. He walked in slowly, as if the graves welcomed him. He thought no one was watching. What he was about to do was beyond sinister. He dropped to his knees and sat before a child's grave. Then, in the dim night, he began chanting, whispering in an ancient tongue, as if calling something from below. He reached out and caressed the headstone, then began digging. Once the coffin was exposed, he pried it open, and what he did next chilled investigators to their core. He slipped inside the coffin himself, curled up, as if he believed the child's spirit would enter him. He lay there, silent, eyes closed, like he believed the dead would speak to him. And for years, he had been stealing the corpses of little girls, one by one. But that night, his faith shattered. A hidden surveillance camera captured his every move, every step, every whisper, every shovel of dirt. Authorities studied the footage. At first, no one recognized the man, but one officer had a suspicion. A historian known for his grave obsession. Police immediately identified him as Anatoly Moskvin, a 45-year-old historian, a respected linguist, fluent in over a dozen languages. He had a PhD in Celtic studies, wrote scholarly papers on burial rituals, and was once considered one of Russia's top experts on graveyards. He wasn't some drifter. He was a man obsessed with death, with folklore, and with preserving the dead in his own twisted way. He didn't see corpses. He saw little girls. Daughters he believed were just asleep. To him, death wasn't the end. It was unfinished business. But for the girls, there was no unfinished story. Only rest. Only silence. Until he brought them back into something far worse than death. His love for children became an obsession. He truly believed he could bring them back to life. And in that belief, he started to see himself as something more than human. A savior. A god. That belief, that twisted sense of love and power, was what drove him to dig up graves. One by one, he unearthed the corpses of dead girls, mummified them, dressed them in delicate angelic clothes, sat them upright in chairs, tucked them into little beds, as if they were his own daughters. By the time police identified his address, Anatoly was already deep in ritual. But just before police stormed the house, Anatoly was already performing what he believed was a father's duty. In the dim, flickering glow of a desk lamp, he sat cross-legged on the floor, humming softly. One of the smaller girls lay before him, her skin thin and yellowed, her limbs wrapped in a pink velvet dress. In his hand, a sewing needle. In his lap, a tangled lock of real blonde hair. He whispered lullabies as he carefully stitched strands of hair onto her head, as if finishing a doll, as if preparing her for her first day of school. A knock echoed on the front door. He didn't flinch. Another knock, louder. Still, he continued humming. Then came a heavy thud. The third strike rattled the hallway. And then, the front door shattered open. Police flooded inside, and their flashlights landed on a sight more horrifying than any nightmare. A man sewing hair onto a corpse, surrounded by 25 more. And that's exactly what police found when they kicked in his front door. 26 mummified girls. Anatoly's children, born not from life, but from his imagination. He believed he was a proud, devoted father to 26 daughters, aged 3 to 29. Every day, he spoke to God. Every night, he sang lullabies to his girls, brushing their hair, dressing them like angels, and tucking them into bed. When police raided his home, they found maps of cemeteries, diaries of the girls' birthdays, rituals, songs he sang to them. He believed he could speak to the dead. He studied folklore. He slept in coffins. When asked why he did it, Anatoly calmly said, "I was waiting for science to find a way to bring them back. I didn't do this for pleasure. I did it for love." Anatoly Moskvin was declared legally insane. Instead of prison, he was committed to a psychiatric hospital, where he remains to this day, still writing, still talking to the dead. When the news broke, it horrified the nation. Families rushed to cemeteries, reporters swarmed the graveyard gates, and people across Russia whispered the same thing. How could no one have known? And the neighbors, who once called him a gentle father, stood outside in silence, realizing the man they trusted was living with the dead the entire time.